Hi everyone, I'm going to show you how to make a recycled DIY bird feeder from a plastic 2-liter bottle. Right here you can see I am laying down my materials. So there's my bottle, scissors, marker, craft knife. I'm going to start out with just removing the label from the bottle and just any pieces that were left behind. Perfect. And then I'm going to take my marker and mark a line halfway down the bottle where I'm going to cut it to put the two pieces together later. So there I'm just drawing the line. You're then going to take the craft knife, and now just be careful with this. You do have to apply a certain amount of pressure into the bottle just to get the knife in. And then I'm just cutting around, trying to keep it straight. And then, as you'll see, oops, almost fell off. Perfect. So I have my two halves, top half and bottom half. So on that top half, I'm going to draw petal shapes, which I'm going to cut out that are going to resemble a flower later on. So as you'll see, I'm just drawing repetitive petal shapes, all starting from the same point on the bottle. And I'm going to then use a scissor to cut that out. So just be careful with this. You obviously have to cut around a round edge, and those plastic edges can be sharp before you round them off. So you can see I'm just getting nicely down into the corners between the petals. Because those petals really, as you'll see, we do end up folding them down. And after we folded them down, when you paint it, it looks like the top of a flower. That'll like be the top half of your bird feeder. It's better to just neaten up now while you're busy, so that you don't have to fix it later or realize once you've started to paint that it isn't looking as perfect as you'd like. Okay, so there, I apologize. I do have some of the video out of frame. I guess I overestimated how far my angle was of the lens was going. So there I am, just folding back the petals. You just basically fold them up towards the top part of the bottle like that, so that they're a bit fanned out. And then I'm just testing to fit and see if it fits over the top. So now that I've done that, I take the marker and I'm going to mark a rectangular shape on the bottom half of the bottle. This will be the opening to the bottle that birds will essentially climb into to get the seed and be able to access the seed. So here I'm using a whiteboard marker so that I can correct the shape as I'm busy, and it also makes it easy to remove any lines before you start painting. So again, using the craft knife or Stanley blade in this case, just being really careful about how hard you push and what surface you're pressing into. Just getting into that rectangular shape. You must just be very careful with this, because the knife may slip and go beyond your marked rectangle, which we don't want. You obviously want to just cut out what you desire to cut out. There we go. There's our whole top half, bottom half. So now I just take the scissor here, and as you saw earlier, I was testing to see if the bottle fit nicely together now, the two pieces. So I'm just also trimming the edge for neatness sake, but also to make sure that they can fit together. Perfect. I managed to get them. There we go. They fit together. That's perfect. So now, moving on to the next part that we're going to do, we're going to be making holes from using, actually, I just used a bent prong of a fork, and you can use a sharp skewer, or you can actually use a hole punch. But I just start out here with the marker, marking 4 holes on opposite sides of the top half of the bottle, and I'm going to do the same on the bottom half of the bottle. Right here, I'm just aligning them because later you will need these holes, the 4 holes on the top, to align with the 4 holes on the bottom. So I'm just sort of aligning them just to make sure I know exactly where they are. The method I use is to put a dot and look at the opposite end of the bottle, put a dot, and then, roughly measure with the eye. So there we go. I can see it aligns, and I'm happy. So I do not have a metal skewer, so I just take the lighter here. Again, apologies that it is out of frame, and I just hold the lighter, the lit flame above the, onto the prong, and then I use that prong to press into the marked hole. And I do that for each side. So there you can see I'm holding the lighter. I do hope that I come into frame at some point. But there we go. I'm just repeating the process for each marked hole. Can take trial and tribulation for this part, but just do make sure, again, you're working with fire, you're working with a hot metal object, so just exercise discretion and safety when doing this part. If you do need some help, then definitely do not hesitate to ask another person to help you. If you need some adult supervision for this, definitely do get an adult involved in this part. But as I did say, you can use a hole punch for this part. There we can see the top of the frame. I'm just there. So I heat it, and then when I put the fork in, but the same principle will apply with the skewer, is once you poke it into the plastic, twist it around so that you make a nice even circle. Again, just checking if they line up. Now we're going to take some string and a scissor. So you can measure out the string. It sort of depends on how long you want the bird feeder to hang. So in this case, I think I measured 2 pieces that were approximately 1.2 meters long. And you'll check. I'm just making sure that it folds up into 4 even sort of halves when folded. But actually it is 2 long identical pieces. And what we do here is you start with the bottom half, pick a hole, and make sure that you tie and secure the string. Just a note here, you can decorate the bottle first and then do this step later, but for demonstrative purposes I wanted to show you how to do this. So now that I've done that, I've done 1 hole. The hole immediately next to that, I take the other string and I tie a knot to secure it so that you have the 2 long strings coming from the bottom half. Now, just tightening up a bit, take the top half and align it so that you can see the corresponding holes. Now we're going to take that one and the string on the left and feed it through the corresponding hole in the top half. And then do the same with the other side. Take the string on the right and feed it through. Now, you need to take that string, one of the strings, and if you look at the top of the bottle, you'll see that the hole directly opposite it is empty. So you'll feed one string and feed it to the hole on the opposite side. So remember, one hole has a hole to its left and its right, and then it has a hole opposite. So that's what I'm just doing there to avoid having to tie so many knots and things later. So once I've fed it through the top of the bottle, I feed it back through the bottom, and now I'm just securing it. May look a little bit messy, but trust the process here, people, please. So I'm doing the same thing. So feeding the string to the hole that is opposite. It should be your last remaining hole. So just feeding from the outside of the top half to its inside, and then to the outside of the bottom half to the inside, and just tying it. The reason I do that specific order is just so that the string can align and sit comfortably when you're opening and closing the bottle, the bird feeder. Okay, so now I'm just putting both halves together, just trying to feed it, and ultimately when you pull the string, sort of like a drawstring action, you should see that the bottle hangs. And this is what you will do to open and close the bird feeder or birdhouse. You can actually use it as a birdhouse if you'd like. But ultimately, that's the finished building of the product. Now is time for some decorating if you would like. Here is a photo of my finished design from one that I made earlier. Just as you can see the strings coming from the holes, I've painted it. An important note is that if you do paint it using acrylic paint, that can come off quite easily due to weather conditions or scratching and just wear and tear. So it is a very good idea to put a sealant over. So I just used like a clear Mod Podge or a clear varnish. You just paint it over and let it dry. As you can see, I also included a dowel stick perch. Same process would apply as burning the holes. So you would burn a hole in the plastic or use a hole punch and just feed a dowel stick directly in. And there you have it, a DIY bird feeder made from a 2-liter plastic bottle, mostly using materials you should already have at your house. Thank you for listening and watching. I hope that you found this interesting and that you managed to make your very own bird feeder.